Well, we begin the hour with the latest news from Zimbabwe, where the ruling Zanu PF has won the majority of seats in parliament. Preliminary results show Zanu PF has dominated voting in rural constituencies by huge margins, and this sets the stage for a victory for President Emmerson Mnangagwa. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission says Zanu PF has picked up 109 seats, compared to the 41 won by the opposition Movement for Democratic Change. Another 58 seats are yet to be declared. With a total of 210 parliamentary seats, Zanu PF needs to secure another 30 to ensure a two-thirds majority. So even if the MDC alliance wins those remaining seats, it isn't enough to secure that two-thirds. Well, let's get to the very latest on the ground in Zimbabwe. We're joined by CGTN's Vauldi Carelse. She's in the capital, Harare. Vauldi, of course, we're hearing that Zanu PF is claiming a lead in the parliamentary poll. But, of course, the MDC is not too pleased about this news. We understand there have been some protests outside the opposition MDC offices. What can you tell us about that?
Well, Lindy, it's not just Zanu PF claiming that lead. That's according to the country's electoral commission. Those results were, of course, announced in batches last night, with the numbers being read out as well as the MP elected in every one of the constituency. They have to go through over 11,000 polling stations, so you can understand why that's taking some time. But what we are seeing here outside the MDC Alliance offices here in Harare on Nelson Mandela Street is really a reaction to the results that came in overnight. I'll get Orto to show you what's happening. You can just see people running down the streets, and this has been the scene since early this morning. We have seen police reinforcements come through as well, water cannons, just people saying that they're refusing to accept the results coming out from Zimbabwe's electoral commission, claiming that these elections are rigged. They're rigged, they say, because those results haven't been posted outside at polling stations in accordance with the country's electoral laws. This is, of course, something that was raised by MDC Alliance officials in a press conference yesterday. So their supporters are really out here trying to make the point that they're refusing to let these elections be rigged. They're singing slogans like "We're willing to die for Nelson Chamisa." That is current Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa's closest rivals in these elections. This is all while we still wait for these presidential results announcements. I'm sorry. As you can see, it's a little bit chaotic here at the moment. But these are the scenes outside the MDC Alliance offices in Harare. I have to stress that it really isn't the situation across the city. It is confined to just the street where we see these police officers and we see these hundreds of MDC Alliance supporters, Lindy.
Well, Vauldi, of course, as we can see from those street scenes there in Harare, people very passionate in their conviction that this is not a Zanu PF victory. Just talk us through what the MDC and its supporters are basing their conviction on as far as their own claims that they have won this election.
The conviction, Lindy, is really based on the fact that at all of the polling stations across the country, MDC Alliance had party officials present. So they were present in the counting. Those results sit outside the polling stations, and they're saying, according to their own numbers, the clear victor in these elections is in fact Chamisa. These are obviously the numbers that they're doing as the party themselves. And yesterday, the MDC Alliance leadership saying that there might be a court challenge emanating from this. But of course, we have to wait until all of the results are in. There are still a couple of polling stations outstanding. The Electoral Commission is still working on verifying the results from the presidential ballots. So really, it's early days. They do have 5 days within which to complete that. But Chamisa coming out on Twitter this morning claiming victory. The same with Mnangagwa saying they'd won. But the numbers certainly back Zanu PF's assertion that they might be in the lead here.
Well, thank you so much, Vauldi Carelse. They're showing us the scenes of chaos to some degree on the streets of Harare. That's outside the MDC headquarters. While staying in Harare, let's now speak to CGTN correspondent Farai Makotoe. He is, of course, outside the ZEC offices. Farai, so far what we understand is that Zanu PF has taken a lead in the parliamentary polls. Is this setting the stage for a Emmerson Mnangagwa presidential victory?
Well, Lindy, I think it certainly is the patterns that we've been seeing, the margins by which the ruling party has been winning, particularly in those rural strongholds, points to a victory for President Emmerson Mnangagwa in the presidential race. I think it's also important to understand the way in which the ruling party campaigned, or certainly has campaigned in this election. These MPs will, yes, go out and try to reach out to the electorate, but at the front, at the center of their campaigns, they've been campaigning and also pushing the candidacy of President Emmerson Mnangagwa for the presidency. So the same levels of support that they have received are likely to be translated and reflected in that presidential vote. And just a latest update that we've received from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, they've said that they'll be announcing the remainder of those parliamentary election results and also begin announcing the presidential results at about 12:30 local time, which is approximately 25 minutes from now. So I'm sure by later today we should have an indication certainly of just how many seats in total Zanu PF has been able to sweep in the parliament, as well as how the race looks in the on the presidential side of things, Lindy.
Indeed, plenty of anticipation for that announcement. Farai, of course, we've just been speaking to Vauldi outside the MDC headquarters, a hint perhaps that there might be a risk of unrest. How is the government handling this potential clashes, or what we might assume might be some clashes on the streets of Harare?
Well, the Minister of Home Affairs, which is responsible for the police here in Zimbabwe, came out yesterday and appealed for calm, asked for people to desist from any sort of engaging in any sort of demonstration or any form of protest until the final results have been announced. It also said that, you know, these sort of actions are being incited by political parties and leaders who are going ahead of the electoral processes to claim and to announce their victory. So they were very, hard-hitting in their stern warning to particularly the opposition parties to desist from what they were doing. They have said that anyone who engages or is in breach of the law and engages in these actions will bear the brunt of the law. And we're starting to see that because we've seen a heavy police deployment in and around the CBD, in and around the MDC Alliance headquarters to try and quell these sort of unrest. The police say, and the Home Affairs Minister say, they are not opposed to any sort of protest or demonstration, but it must be peaceful and must be within the confines of the law and after the full results have been announced. If there are any challenges, the opposition are being encouraged to make those challenges through the proper channels, which is the legal channel. And just to let you know as well very quickly, we've just come out of some briefings that are still underway from some of the election observers that have been covering this election. SADC, AU have both said that, look, the electoral environment in this election is improved, significantly improved from previous elections. They've spoken about this issue of peace. They've spoken about the issue of freedom to engage, to campaign, and to go into different areas, which has, preceded and characterized this election. And again, they're also calling for peace and for the participants in the election to accept the outcome.
Well, let's indeed hope that cool heads do prevail. Thank you so much, Farai Makutoya, joining us there in Harare. And as he says, that election results expected within the next 20 minutes.